Hello, and welcome to the first episode of the Salsa Table Podcast. Here in attendance, we have Nathan Warnick, our co-host. My name is Joshua Hill, and currently in attendance as well, who prepared the salsa, is Brock May. Brock, say hello.
Hello.
So Brock just made some extremely hot salsa for us. Didn't take the seeds out of the jalapenos, so it was definitely on the hotter side.
It's good, though.
But
it's salsa.
Yeah, we actually, I've been eating it by the handful, basically, so it's very good. Nathan, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Nathan Warnick. I am a 22-year-old UVU student, and I have nothing else to say about myself.
And
Brock, is this for me?
Yeah.
So Brock just brought by some pita things. Basically chicken and what is it? Wing sauce?
Yeah,
Buffalo ranch.
Yep.
With cheese. This actually looks fairly killer. But we're going to start off with Nathan's topic. We just discussed a long and drawn-out discussion and decided that it would be best that we started a podcast. So we have the first installment of the Salsa Table Podcast. Go ahead, Nathan.
All right. So, I want to start off talking about this Humans of New York, which is like this Facebook page. I'm pretty sure everyone knows what it is, but it's like a Facebook page where they like take pictures of random people in New York and they'll tell their stories or whatever. And one post that has really stuck with me for like a long time is this post about this one dude who pretty much he doesn't in the photograph. I can't remember. I don't think he looked like the best kind of like looking dude. Like maybe he had been through like some rough times, you know. And he pretty much like came to the conclusion that like there is no God or something like along the lines of like there's no higher purpose. Like the only purpose is to like provide like the most happiness to like oneself or whatever. And so he thought, and when he came to that conclusion, it like finally struck him that he should just do drugs, because that's like the number one way how to like just produce happiness. Like if that's like the only, like if there is no other higher purpose, then like that's the thing that makes the most sense, because that's what's going to provide the most dopamine to your brain. And then pretty much when they had taken the picture, he was kind of on the other end of it, where he had kind of realized that that was a bad idea, but like he also didn't have like any other like reason why, but he said he was like happier off of drugs somehow.
Yeah.
And so like I think that's kind of like part of human nature, is that like you have to have like somehow having a higher purpose will bring you more happiness in the long run somehow, even if you have to suffer for it, which is kind of interesting. I was also listening to another podcast kind of about like these minors and like ones that like mine, not like young children.
Yeah.
But they just, all they wanted is they just wanted to work. Like they didn't care like if they got like, well, they obviously did care if they got paid, like they wanted to get paid, but it was more important to them to have a purpose to like do that work than it was. And they'd rather do that work and live a miserable life than not feel like they're accomplishing anything. I can't remember what the podcast was getting at, but it was like something along the lines of like, that's why they voted for Trump. But it was interesting. But anyways, that's my story. I don't know what you want to talk about it, but like.
Well, I think it is well to note, like, with that guy, he's kind of right, though. Because if you think about, like we were talking about, I feel like the prime directive of humanity is that we are supposed to have children and pass on our genes, at least from a biological standpoint. Like, our biology dictates that we must have children and pass on our genes. And in a Freudian way, like Freud explained that everything is sex. Like, jokingly, that kind of sums up his philosophy, but like, if everything is sex and that is the point to life, then in essence he is right, because dopamine is released during sex, and it's also released during drugs. So his brain, to his brain's understanding, is essentially just getting that chemical that makes him feel good because it's in line with the prime directive. So maybe, in a way, he is right, but who knows? Obviously, it's not ideal to be on the streets doing drugs, and certainly wouldn't call that a happy lifestyle by any stretch.
Yeah. I think humans are complicated, and even though, like, it's kind of weird, but it's like, even though we suffer, sometimes, like, the suffering is kind of like the part that brings us the most joy in, like, a weird way. It's kind of like the whole idea, like, it's more about the journey than it is about the destination type of thing. And, like, looking back in my life, like, even, like, some of the hardest things that I've done while I was going through it, like climbing a mountain, or I'll just use that as an example, like, it sucks, but, like, looking back, for some reason, even though it was bad, it was good. It was like a good bad.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys know what I'm talking about, like that kind of good, like, suffering.
Because it's rewarding to go do hard things.
Yeah, it's rewarding.
Yeah. Well, I think to some extent, yes. Easy, I guess, to loop this back with the biological discussion, like, it's easy to obviously do drugs, but that doesn't bring happiness. So maybe, like, this sort of long suffering that happens in the pursuit of dopamine, like, it's obviously not easy to raise a family, but at the end of the journey, when you die and you're on your deathbed, a lot of people, I'm assuming that a lot of people are able to look back and feel a sense of, like, deep accomplishment or deep fulfillment. Whereas if you try and hack that, and if you try and get that quickly, you are accomplishing the prime directive as far as the biological hormones go, as far as your dopamine quota. You've gotten what you've gotten for the day, but it certainly does not lead to happiness. You have to struggle in the pursuit of the prime directive, I guess. I don't know if that makes a whole lot of sense, though.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It does.
I mean, biologically speaking, like, it would make sense that our brains would reward us more for accomplishing something great over a long period of time, because that's going to lead more, like, just looking at this from, like, survival of the fittest kind of point.
Yeah.
Like, it'd make more sense that our brains would reward us more for accomplishing, like, hard things than it would reward us for, like, instant gratification things. I don't know if that made sense, but
What do you think, Brock?
Yeah, I do think, like, we do get, like, a better, like feeling of dopamine when we're rewarded for doing something, like, much harder. So, like, in other words, like, you'll be, like, a lot stronger. Like, that feeling of, like, just euphoria for being able to, like, yeah, like Nate said, go climb a mountain or complete, like, a big, like, computer programming project or something like that, like, or just something you've always wanted to do. Like, just check off the bucket list. It just makes you feel good that you're able to do that.
Yeah, but I think I was actually wrong in, like, my claim that dopamine is what makes you happy. I think the happiness chemical is serotonin, actually. So I think dopamine brings pleasure, but serotonin brings happiness, and that's why they have SSRIs for antidepressants. They serotonin reuptake inhibitors. They just regulate the serotonin.
or they just electrocute you.
That's one way to put it.
Alright, let's jumpstart this baby. We'll work some of my car will work on a human.
So that was very good, Brock. Thank you for the pita.
You're welcome.
It's definitely worth the wait and the shopping. Let's talk about Trader Joe's.
Ooh.
I want to talk about Trader Joe's. It seems to be a phenomenon in Provo, obviously. It seems like it's obviously the trendier choice as far as grocery stores. Obviously, they have some superior goods, so some of their things taste better. But I want consensus here. I want everybody to give, like, is it worth it, and to what extent? Would you, like, how would you incorporate Trader Joe's, if at all, into your lifestyle? Why is this, or give us your opinion, why is Trader Joe's so popular? Why are they succeeding so well? Why is this a thing in Provo?
Alright, I would like to make an official statement on Trader Joe's. This is my official statement. Number one, answering the question, is Trader Joe's overpriced? I would say yes, but like most stores, they will offer stuff at a lower price to get you in, to try to sell you the high price stuff. But I think if you're smart and you just buy the low price stuff, and then you get really good quality for those things that you buy.
Yeah.
And so my deal with Trader Joe's is I like going there for like a few specific low price, high quality products. And I also like how hippy dippy it is, but that's like a whole nother topic.
So yeah, Nathan, you talked earlier about the fact that you value ethically sourced goods from stores.
Yes.
So why is that? Why do you prefer Trader Joe's over Walmart, say?
I just feel like Trader Joe's definitely I haven't researched it, so like I don't know this, but it definitely gives off like more of a earth-friendly vibe to it, with its products being like they always like. I mean, this is mostly a marketing scheme, but like when they say like natural, organic, like it's
no GMOs and
yeah,
no.
it just kind of makes you feel like you're eating healthier. I don't know if that's really the case, but I know Trader Joe's is a good business as far as like ethically, because they pay their employees very well. I know that they pay their employees better than Walmart employees, I believe. So I think don't quote me on that, but I think they pay their employees better. I also like how they do paper bags instead of plastic bags, which is less plastics, better for the earth. Doesn't end up in our oceans killing sea turtles.
And plus, they're also recyclable and reusable for some extent.
Mm-hmm. So I don't know like how deep it goes, but I just like the fact that Trader Joe's is like a little bit more. At least it gives off the vibe that it's a little bit more friendly to people and to the environment than a bigger company like Walmart. Even though Trader Joe's is really big because it's just an off branch of even a bigger company, but.
So what about say, give it a score, 1 out of 10 stars. What would you rate Trader Joe's as far as the overall quality, how much you enjoy shopping there, how integrated it is with your daily shopping or with your weekly shopping?
The overall experience, I'd give it as a 6.5. I think the reasons that it's not higher up is because it's expensive. It's has less options as like a bigger supermarket. What are they called? Supermarket. Would have, and those are the two big reasons why I'm not rating it higher.
So, do you think that? I mean, obviously, with quantity, you lose quality. So, when you walk through the Walmart shoe section, say you can find a pair of shoes for $10 and they look like the real thing, but they're not. You can tell that it's not a high quality shoe, and so I guess you're right in the fact that you like the experience and you value the ethics behind it, but because it's too expensive, because you have to pay to play, so to speak, with that quality game, you're not into it. So, yeah, I think that's important to note. I think if there was a Walmart of Trader Joe's, so to speak, or like if there was a big box store that was cheap and you could get ethically sourced goods in this pipe dream world, I think that is what Nathan was going for, but I think that's why the conflict exists, is because you cannot have quality and quantity in the same vein. I guess unless you go to Costco, of course, but
it's kind of like that, like triangle. Have you seen those like triangles where it's like you only can have like 2 of these things?
Yeah.
It's like You either pick like quality or quantity or price or quality or price.
Sleep,
Yeah.
good grades, friends.
Yes.
Choose 2.
Yeah. So it's obvious in life that you cannot have everything at once. So sleep, grades, good grades.
Wait, it's like social life, good grades,
and
sleep.
Yep.
Yeah,
Choose 2.
That's why they talk about the balance of time management in college and how it's so impossible. Brock, what do you think? What is your assessment of Trader Joe's?
Trader Joe's, I mean, I love going there for their produce and then for their meat. But like for most of the other stuff, like I don't think it's like as good as like the stuff you could get at like Walmart or Smith's for cheaper. If not, it might end up being the same in some cases. And then like there's just some weird things about it that you like. There's just things that they don't sell that you're just gonna have to make a trip to that store anyway, like toothpaste and then like your essentials like medications, your like just a bunch of other stuff that you think you wouldn't be able to get in a Trader Joe's or a normal grocery store, but you just can't get it there.
Yeah.
So I just think it's kind of stupid because of that. So my experience, like my rating would probably be like right around a 7, just because it's not a one-stop shop.
Yeah. So you're saying it loses those 3 points because it doesn't have the same diversity, or it's not a one-stop shop for those essential items. Nathan, what do you think?
I agree. I think if you go to Walmart, like, they've got a freaking garden center to put it in play. Like, Walmart literally has everything. So, like, and Trader Joe's doesn't have everything. So I agree. Anyways.
Well, I think that was the point of Walmart's business model, was that they did want to be a one-stop shop for everything.
Yeah.
That's why in their super centers they have an optometrist and an auto care center and a garden center all in the same exact area.
And a Subway and a McDonald's and
yeah.
They literally have everything you need.
They have everything you need or could want, and they also will assemble your groceries for you, and you just have to pick it up for free.
That is true. They do that now. I want to try that, actually.
Wait,
but
what do you think of Trader Joe's, Josh?
Oh, yes.
You gotta give me a rating too.
Yeah, so just to give background, I was not impressed by the culture. I'm usually if people like something, I tend to not like that, just because that's kind of who I am. Like, if there's a trend, I will not like that trend, or I don't like to go with the grain. I'm kind of in the same camp sometimes, so I understand where you're coming from. So generally, like with the music, with an artist, if
wait, if I'm ahead of the trend and like the trend follows, I will be the biggest. I'll be like the biggest. Like, yeah, this is sick. But if I'm like behind the trend or whatever, I might hate it more.
Yes. So if I would have discovered, so in your words, if you would have discovered Trader Joe's like 5 years ago,
I would probably be the biggest Trader Joe's fan right now.
Exactly. So I think that's true. Like with music artists, specifically with me, like if I enjoy this artist and then other people start liking him or her, I'm going to start not liking that artist specifically because I don't like that other people like what I like, if that makes sense. But essentially, I was aware of the trend. I knew that people were all fired up about Trader Joe's. I didn't know what for. I knew that it was a specialty store, but today for the first time we went, and granted I was biased because I don't like that subculture of people that kind of go and have money to spend where I don't have money to spend on specialty items because I'm broke, and they might be better off, or maybe they choose to, I don't know, but essentially I thought that the store was fine. I thought their produce was awful. Frankly, like the onions were all rotted away and disgusting. They also had a very small selection. But when we got into different parts of the store, like the meat section, there's clearly higher quality meat, and there are specialized items. Like, you definitely can't get mahi-mahi fish at Walmart, but you could get it mahi steaks at Trader Joe's. So I think it definitely has its place. I think given the fact that they do have specialty items like that, I actually will shop there more often, or shop at places like Harmon's or any other specialized store.
We got
Exactly. I don't know. I liked the fact that there are some items there that I can't get anywhere else, and so I'm gonna file it away in my head that, you know, like if I want to impress guests or if I just want to try something new, I'll probably stop by Trader Joe's to get like mahi or like swordfish steaks, because that was there. I saw that there today, and there's nicer cheeses. Yeah, exactly.
The swordfish steaks.
There's swordfish steaks and different things like that. But in the same vein, I would absolutely regret it entirely if I went there for my primary point of shopping, because although it is ethically sourced, and I admit that I do value that, like that's good, I think we should move towards that. I more value prices, because that's just where I am with my values.
But you think later in life, if you were to have a higher paying job,
see, I don't think I would ever change either.
you don't think you would ever change?
Unless I was a millionaire, like millions and millions of dollars, where I had what we like to call FU money. Like if I just have FU money, I can.
So you're like one of those like old people that like comes out of the Great Depression and is like gonna live like they're in the Great Depression for the rest of their life.
Kind of, dude. Yeah. No, I don't want to have a mentality of like. See, that's another topic of discussion. There's like the mentality of prosperity, and then there's a mentality of scarcity. And so, like, coming out of the Great Depression, a lot of these old folks have this mentality of scarcity, like there maybe won't be food on the table next week, and so I'm going to take all these extra steps, or like I'm going to save my cottage cheese Tupperware because of some odd reason. So I think we should talk about that. But basically, to loop that off, I think Trader Joe's is fine, but I will probably go there for one thing, and it won't be anything that's packaged and with their brand on it, specifically like a bag of chips or a sauce. I won't go there for any of that. I'll go there because they have interesting cheese, or because they have interesting sodas, or because they have interesting cuts of meat that I couldn't get places elsewhere. So overall, I'd give it like a 4. A 4 because it doesn't really lend a whole lot of utility to me, and I'm not going to incorporate it into my life. I think the prices are just above the limit where I would feel guilty if I went there, because I could do so much more at Walmart or at Macy's or any other regular chain with that same amount of money.
That's fair.
So,
Yeah.
Well, what do you guys think about this mentality of scarcity? See, because it's kind of hard to make it as a it'd be hard to make it on Wall Street as a stock trader if you didn't have a nice suit and didn't live in a nice place, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you kind of have to pay to play in some regard. You couldn't be like living out of a van like I was, and like wearing cowboy clothes and still expect to get a high paying job.
That's kind of like a thing of status, though, when you think about it.
Yeah.
Like less scarcity, but more like status.
Yeah.
When I don't know, I admire people that are very thrifty. At the same time, though, it can be kind of annoying because sometimes I perceive people as kind of like cheap, right?
Yeah.
Where it's like come on, like it's like $2. Like, do I really have to Venmo you for gas or something? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, I think, but then I also think it's kind of cool, like, when people are, like, super thrifty. Like, I kind of used to find this annoying, but now I find it cool. But my dad will always save, like sauce packets from, like, fast food places. And, like, even the silverware. Like,
I don't think he's alone,
we'll
dude.
open up the drawer, and they'll just be, like, plastic forks or whatever that we didn't use. And, like, So it's like some people that's like kind of crazy, but like I kind of think that's kind of cool. But so it kind of goes both ways for me because there's like that sense of someone being cheap where it's like really, but then there's like also where it's like, ooh, that's kind of neat, or like that's kind of a cool way to save money. So I don't know.
So what's the sweet spot? How much should you value money? Because to some extent, you can live and work your whole life and work really hard for money, make all the correct financial decisions, but have you really lived, right?
Yeah.
Like, if you're just going to live off of beans and rice your whole life, did you really, like, maybe you should treat yourself, maybe you should go out to eat, but if you do it the other way, if you go out to eat too often, then you're abusing that. I don't know, where's your sweet spot?
I have an answer for this, and it's, I actually don't have a specific answer, but I have, like, a kind of answer to it. So there's this dude that was doing this presentation once, and so, like, there's your credibility about this, but, like...
I love that source.
It was this, and it was, like, during a church thing, too, so it's, like, I don't know, I haven't fact-checked any of this, so I don't know if it's true, but it seemed true, so I've kind of always believed it.
Okay, that's good.
Pretty much he was talking about this whole idea that we were kind of talking about, like, where's the line of, like does money buy happiness, right? And there's a lot of people who will say, like, yeah, money does buy happiness because I'm very happy in my freaking yacht right now or whatever. But, like, there have actually been, like, real scientific studies about it, according to this guy, where, like, it is true that the more money you have, the happier you will be to a point. So people that are living in poverty is actually shown that they're less happy than people that have wealth, but people that have like extreme amount of wealth are no more happy than people that are living like decent lives, if that makes sense.
Yes.
So like it kind of reaches that like money will buy you happiness to a point where like once you're out of that poverty and like survival mode, once you're out of that mode and you're living comfortably in the sense that you're not worried about survival, then once you reach that point, money no longer correlates with how happy a person is. Which I thought was kind of interesting.
So I think
according to this guy.
Yeah, I think I know exactly what you're talking about, and I think it is more credible than you claim it to be, because I have heard it, and I'd like to verify this though. That I think that threshold is $120,000 per year. So I think there was a survey that was done that, and I wish I had Jamie, if this was Joe Rogan, I'd have Jamie fact check this or something, bring up the laptop and fact check this. But essentially, like, there's a threshold that's at 120 or above $120,000 per year in household income. Money cannot further buy you happiness, because at $120,000 a year you have plenty of money, you have all of the basic needs covered, you have a house, you have reasonable transportation, you're able to go on vacations, you're able to explore hobbies, you're able to buy toys but also cover the necessities. But above $120,000, I think that was the threshold. Above that, money is just, I think in that regard, you get to the FU money phase, where you just kind of have, it becomes a little excessive, because you can only buy so many things.
Yeah. And oh, sorry, you're going to say something, Brock?
So I just found this article. It was kind of talking about the same thing. It says it's like, the threshold is $95,000 for ideal life evaluation, which takes into account like long-term goals, peer comparisons, and other macro level metrics. And then after that, it'll say that it's simply the findings don't mean that getting a huge raise won't lead to individual satisfaction. It simply suggests that, according to researchers, that a group of people making $200,000 a year is likely no happier than a group of people only making $95,000.
Yeah.
That makes sense. And that's about around the figure you were saying, right? You said 100.
So that actually brings me to another topic.
Wait, I was gonna say one.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
So I was gonna loop this around with like the whole thing about like dopamine we were saying. Like,
yeah,
if you like you said, if you're going out all the time, and it's kind of like activating like the dopamines too much, and you're just gonna abuse it. Where if you like become more scarce and then only treat yourself like on an occasion, it'll be like a lot better per se. You'll be able to feel a lot better.
Yeah, so I think like basically moderation.
Moderation is key.
Moderation, balance.
In all
I don't mean to
things.
get all I don't mean to get all like Buddhist on
That's
y'all.
why I am half Taoist.
Yeah.
But anyways, I was gonna say this about rich people. I don't really like rich people culture.
Yeah.
And I don't know, there's just something about it where it's like a lot of people will like aspire to that, where they're like, oh, like that's so cool. But for me, I don't know, I just feel like sometimes the cooler people in life are the people with less money.
Mm-hmm.
When I look at role models, I kind of tend to choose people that aren't poor, but like they're not like super rich, because I don't know, there's most rich people that I've run into, not all, just say that like there's a lot of really humble rich people, but there's a lot of rich people who aren't that humble, and I don't think they really realize it sometimes, and it just kind of like rubs me the wrong way sometimes.
Yeah.
Totally get that.
So, yeah, I think it definitely is self-serving, and it definitely rubs those have-nots the wrong way. Like us, we're kind of have-nots, and so essentially we do kind of take craps on it. But maybe if we were in their shoes, we would look down on the bottom feeders like us. And
I don't know. There's like people that have come from the bottom, and then like they get rich, and then they like understand what it's like to be like down there.
money doesn't buy happiness.
Yeah, they understand that concept, and so they're like very kind and generous. But then there's also the flip side, and then the flip side are the people that I don't like, that are just like rich and just arrogant and just like me.
So money doesn't buy happiness, but money absolutely mitigates suffering.
Yes.
I can say I came behind that.
So you can eliminate all the suffering in your life, but after $95,000 a year, you have no more suffering to get rid of. And the rest of that suffering is kind of that existential suffering, the bigger ideas, the philosophical ideas. Your relationship isn't working, but you can't buy a Lambo to fix your relationship, right? Another thing that I thought was interesting, I don't know what it's called, the phenomenon, but it basically describes the phenomenon of when people get a raise at work, or when people get a good job and they start making more money, say incrementally, they start making more money, and their lifestyle slowly raises to meet the amount that they raised. So, for instance, I got a job at X amount of dollars. I thought it was a really good job a few years ago. I won't say the amount of money because it's taboo, but I'll say it, whatever.
I don't care,
actually.
dude. That's actually another topic that I hate.
Yes.
It's like people are like so secretive about how much money they make. I'm like, I don't care. Just say it.
I was actually going to make a YouTube channel where I was completely transparent about my finances for years. So like I show people how much money went in, where I spent it, and how much money I have, because it's so taboo. But essentially, I got a job at $13 an hour a few years ago in customer service. At the time, I was 19, I think, so it was a pretty good job. And the year was 2017, I believe. And it was a good job. Like, I made, I think, $800 per paycheck, and that was good enough. And I also didn't have very many expenses, but I do feel like I spent a lot of it on, I don't know what, maybe eating out or buying certain things. At the time, I was really into antiques. But essentially, like, I took a break and went to school, and now I'm back in the workforce for now, and I got a job just recently at ding, 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 $15 an hour.
Nice.
So I'm making $15 an hour, and I feel like that is a really good wage for my demographic. Like, the livable wage, I think, in Provo is like $12. And so it's well above the livable wage, and I do feel like I have work experience and education. So I feel like it's representative of how much I'm worth as an employee, but essentially, like, what I'm afraid of is that because my last job, I was used to making, my last real job, I should say, I was used to making $13 an hour. Now that I'm making $15, I'm wondering how much leniency I'm going to give myself with how much more I can spend on stuff, because now I have all this money. And that's the phenomenon, is that when people get a raise or when people get a new job, when people start making more money, their lifestyle expands to meet that level that they have expanded themselves, which is, it kind of aligns with what we were talking about. So at what point do you think that this extra money that you've gotten should be spent? Because if you are happy where you are, you wouldn't need to expand your lifestyle, right? If I'm happy how I am right now before making $15 an hour, why do I need to spend more money after I make $15 an hour to be the same amount of happy that I am now? What do you guys think?
I think you're still, you're not making $90,000 a year, so I think you might still be good to spend a little bit more money. But I think that it's good that you have that mindset.
What mindset?
Maybe you don't have that mindset.
The mindset of like you might be making more, but you're still living like where you were before.
Like being happy where you are?
Yeah.
I think that's a good mindset to have. Because
you can do so much more stuff with that. Like you could go invest the money that you made in like the stock market, an IRA, or any other
bonds.
Anything like that would help you like set yourself up for the future to the point where you could like be happy when you're in your 80s in a nursing home down in Florida.
Yeah.
Another thing that I think about a lot, which is kind of weird, is like how much I should spend on myself versus how much I should give to charity. Because there's kind of like that argument, right, where it's like if you invest in yourself, you're going to be able to give more to charity in the future, right?
Ooh.
Versus but if I give $100 right now, I could buy like a bunch of mosquito nets and save some kid's life in Africa, you know?
Yeah.
That's like, how much should we spend of our money now to help versus how much do we need to be thinking about like investing it? So like it's kind of weird because it's like there's obviously always a demand. I think there's like a group or whatever that did like research on like how much money it would cost to like save a human life, and I can't remember what it was, but it was like less than like $100 is like what you have to give to like actually like save someone, like statistically.
Wow. Really?
Yeah, just like whether you're like investing in like vaccines for like poor countries or whatever, like they're like that's like the value of like a human life, which is like kind of crazy to think about. So it's like, well, it's like if someone was like dying on the street right next to me right now, and all I had to do to save their life was give them $50, it would be considered like bad or unethical of me to like, it's kind of like an ethical dilemma, right? Like it'd be considered unethical of me to like keep the money, right? And say I'm saving this $50 to help myself when I could spend that money to like save someone's life. But at the same time, it's like, I don't know, like, you know what I mean? Like, this is like a hard problem because it's like, well then, like if I give all my money to charity, then like I kind of get stuck in this problem where I'm not going to help people out in the future. But then like there's also that instant demand that people are suffering and dying like as we speak. Like thousands of people are going to die tonight across the world that could have been prevented for me giving my money away to people. So anyways, it's a weird thought.
Well, I think the phenomenon there is the separation from suffering. So like it's much more real if it's happening to your family. This goes into the coronavirus, dude. We got to talk about the coronavirus. But basically, like, if it's not happening here, it's not happening. Out of sight, out of mind. So we don't see the suffering that happens in South America or in India or in wherever, developing countries. We don't see the suffering, and so we keep it out of our mind. But the dilemma that Nathan brings up is totally killer. Like, for 10 hours wages, you could save a life. You could work. We are so privileged in this world that we live in, on this side of the world, I mean, that with 10 hours of my life, I can extend another human's life by possibly 40, 50 years, that is ridiculous. For 10 hours of my life, that is insane.
Yep, and that's the world we live in.
That is the world we live in, and I think the phenomenon is that detachment from reality or detachment from suffering. We don't see it, so it's out of sight and out of mind. And that's what I'd like to talk about next is the coronavirus. So everybody seems to have their own little philosophy about the coronavirus, and I will get to all of you. We are going to talk about our philosophies. We're going to define them and get into this, but I do think that everybody has a personal bias based off of where they are, obviously, right? Like somebody in New York who has friends or has family members that have been infected, been personally impacted by the virus, they're going to have a different perspective than people in Utah, say, where I think the case count is 5,000-6,000.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I
it's
don't
right
follow
up
it.
there.
I know it's below 10,000 though, and that is a very safe range right now. It's not safe as far as the exponentiality of it, but Nathan, what do you think about the coronavirus? Is it a hoax? Is it a plandemic? Is it a real thing? Do you think we should be shutting down the economy? Do you think businesses should be shut down? Do you think that the government is expanding its power? Or do you think that it's taking the right moves to keep the public safe? What do you think, man?
That's a loaded question right there. Well, all right. First, starting off to answer the beginning part, I think the coronavirus is real.
Obviously.
I don't think it's a pandemic. I don't think China released or anything because they're kind of shooting themselves in the foot if they do it because it's not like it's hurting everyone. So I mean, I can see like the potential for future biological warfare, is that what you call it?
Yeah.
I can see the potential for it, but like the coronavirus like hurt everyone, and it definitely seemed like China was unprepared for it given how high or like how many people died there. Like it's just like it hurt China as much as it hurt us. So like I don't think there's not a lot of political motives behind it except for people who just want to watch the world burn. Those people may have planned it, but like I don't think a government planned it because it would just hurt themselves too. Mm-hmm. Moving on to some of your other questions. For me, the coronavirus doesn't really hit home. Doesn't feel real. Like a lot of things, like you hear about a lot of things until it happens to you. It just like doesn't really affect you. And that's kind of how I feel about the coronavirus. No one I know close has it. Like I've heard like my aunt's cousin or whatever has it. You know what I'm saying? But like no one like I know close to me has it. So I think just because of that, it doesn't feel real to me. And and the government. All right. And to conclude, the government aspect of it, I think that government is expanding their powers, but I don't think it's permanent. Like, I think like they're gonna. I think there's enough opposition to it that when things get back to normal, that the government is gonna go back to normal. I think people are a little bit over panicked about some of the things they set in place. I mean, the whole idea of like a quarantine's scary, like because it's like control, right? But like we know, like it's like once like things like settle down or whatever, if like the government's still doing that, then it's like all right, then now you can panic. But I don't think we should be panicking now when the pandemic's happening.
Well, I think a huge root to the panic, or at least this next phase of the coronavirus, because we had the first phase, which was the rapid expansion and like the shutdowns. So we all kind of have this post-traumatic stress, the whole country, the whole world basically, of not knowing what was going to happen, not knowing what life was going to look like. All schools shut down. That impacted us. We went online. A lot of us lost our jobs. Everybody knows their own story. So everybody's impacted by this. But we're now on to this next phase where things are still unclear, but also the scope and the direction of where people should go, what we should do, is totally in muddy waters, and everybody seems to be voicing their opinion on the next step, specifically with whether we should be shut down, because at this point, a lot of the stress is coming from local businesses with their accounts payable stacking up. Like they still have to pay rent on the place that they own. They still have to, for a large portion, pay benefits or pay wages on employees that aren't working, aren't engaging their profit centers, aren't bringing in money. And essentially the government was supposed to fix that, but like, did they? And so that's why I think we see so many protesters out there.
Yeah, I don't think they fixed it. I mean, they tried. I think they made it better, but it's obviously not fixed.
Well, I think if it was fixed, people would be much more happy in quarantine. So,
yeah.
Nathan, what's your 1 out of 10 score as far as pandemics go? 1 out of 10 stars.
This is definitely. There's nothing cool about this disease. There's nothing like that dangerous about it to like make it extreme, but it's like also like not lame enough for it just to be ignored.
Yeah.
So it overall just sucks. I give it like a 2.5.
Dang, son. That's right, COVID. Take that. You get a 2.5 rating.
I thought swine flu was cooler, low-key.
Yeah, I remember swine flu as a kid, but I don't remember much.
Like, I just remember, like, nothing, like, that happened during the past couple of months. Like, there was no lockdown, no craziness.
There was a little craziness.
I mean, like,
flu,
little to no craziness.
Yeah.
Like, nowhere near as much as coronavirus.
Yeah. So, Brock, give us your take. What do you think about coronavirus? Do you think it's overhyped? Do you think it is underhyped? Where do you stand on shutdowns? Where do you stand on the government's reactions? Do you think it's a risk to us? What's your prescription?
Just from, like, the basic, like, statistics, it's like the over 99% survival rate, and then like there's like numbers that like I'm not sure about, because like there's definitely less cases that have been reported, and then there's definitely like I think there's been more deaths that have been reported, or like those deaths that are shown, like those are only like deaths from like people who are actually like diagnosed with coronavirus. And then you also have to take into account, like, did these people really die from just the coronavirus? Or did they die because they had some other, like, condition? Like, they died of cancer, but they also happened to have COVID at this time.
Yes.
Or they had, like, heart disease, diabetes, or whatever condition you could think of.
Yeah, the at-risk population.
Yeah, the at-risk population. And that the at-risk population was, like, a huge chunk of the deaths here with this virus. Like a normal, like healthy human being, like the chances of dying are like super slim. So I think what should have happened was like they should have really focused on like quarantining the at-risk people, but still like kept mostly everything open because of that, like because we locked everybody out, we pretty much like
it made hard for like the herd immunity.
The herd immunity was difficult to happen, and then economically it pretty much crippled like the area I'm from, in like northeastern Pennsylvania and the north upstate New York area. Like everybody's like having a hard time getting back to work.
Yeah, I think we kind of are isolated from that in Utah a little bit too. But like what you were saying, what do you think that the approach for the next pandemic should be? Like just take the at-risk population and shut them up, or I mean shut them up in their rooms, like keep them quarantined, because it does seem like maybe the response was incorrect. Like maybe if Trump would have come out and said, okay, this is the guideline, there is a pandemic, we're not going to shut anything down, but you guys need to know that this is serious,
but
right?
If you're 65 or older, we will shut you down.
Yeah, exactly. The age discrimination. No, but basically just give the country its freedom and just say, look, this is serious. We need you to pay attention. We're not going to do anything about it. We're not going to shut schools down. You are welcome to take your kids out if that's what you feel. But we're going to give America the freedom. I'm not saying this is what I believe. I'm just saying, is this what Brock was saying? Like maybe there was some sort of medium.
Yeah. Like Sweden, like did it perfectly. Like they just did like the herd immunity thing.
Huh.
And like they never closed anything down for the most part. And they did like that quarantine thing. Like for the longest time, they was like China was the model for handling the coronavirus, just locking everybody down, and everybody followed suit because that's what the World Health Organization said. But then, like a couple weeks ago, they came out and said that maybe we should have done it the way Sweden did it.
Yeah. So sacrifice the young, let them go and get sick and get that herd immunity, right?
Yeah,
for the most part, yeah. It's kind of like the gist of what I got from that.
So, Brock, what would you rate the coronavirus? 1 to 10 on the scale from... you're going to give coronavirus gold stars here for its pandemicness. So, what do you think?
I'd say for... Like, I'm probably going to say 3 because it, like, the seriousness of it, like, it's really not that serious. But, like, the scare factor... the scare factor of it was, like, is what drives it higher.
Yeah. So, you do think that, like, fear is obviously a huge player in this game.
Yes.
Like, fear and the media and how the media does enact fear by what they do. I mean, on some respect, even if it is honest journalism, it still enacts fear in people because it's a scary thing. So fear has been a huge part of this pandemic. What do you guys think your takeaways will be in your generation? Like, what do you think? Because, in fact, I'm going to dive deeper here. So every generation...
Josh, you gotta give us your thought first.
I will in a minute, but just let me finish this. So every generation has some sort of defining moment or maybe a defining event in their generation that define the way they think about things, define the habits that they make. So, for instance, we had the Great Depression folks who, after the Great Depression, they saved plastic items like their cottage cheese Tupperware. Why do they do that? That's so dumb. It's like, put it in recycling or toss it. It's not that like valuable, but they value it because they don't see it as disposable. They see it as useful. And that's just a marker of people who lived through the Great Depression because they feel like maybe the food won't be there one day, or maybe they should save things. They just have that mentality. Yeah. So I think the baby boomers, they had the Vietnam War. You know, like that was a hard thing that defined their generation. Mm-hmm. And then like Gen Xers, they had 9/11. So after 9/11, like before 9/11, they always say how airports were open. You could walk right up to the platform and greet people and welcome them off the plane. But the whole world changed, and now we view travel differently. The power of government has been vastly expanded, the regulatory power. The Patriot Act, they can now scan our emails for terrorist information, you know, like just vast breaches of privacy. But that was a generationally defining event that changed the course of that generation. And so I think ours is the coronavirus, man. Yes. What else would it be? Like, this is it, internet. Man. Well, true, but you and I were raised into the internet. Like, I guess we're the first generation
didn't really use the internet.
True, yeah. So, but
that'd be my one counter argument.
Yeah,
to coronavirus, but
I think that the internet is just like a technology. It's in the technology group of things. I'm talking about black swan events, like the Great Depression, or like the Vietnam War, or like 9/11, or like even Pearl Harbor, the World War. Right, generationally defining events, or in our case, the coronavirus. Now, what you're talking about, I think, is technology. So, like, people that grew up in the Industrial Revolution are going to think differently because they grew up with things, while we grew up with the internet. So,
real quick side note.
Yeah.
Something I find interesting is like the whole war in like the Middle East with like Afghanistan and Iran or whatever. Like, we grew up during that war. We've, like, lived most of our lives during that war.
Dude.
And how, like, I'm so desensitized to it. Like, I don't even, like, really think that are like nations at war, even though we have technically been at war for many, many years, which is kind of another interesting side note. That's a whole nother topic of discussion, though.
Yeah, so, but I do think that the coronavirus is our defining event. So we're going to talk to our kids about this. We already talked about this, but like, we're going to tell our kids what it was like during the pandemic.
Yep.
We're going to tell them about the fear that we had, just like my parents tell me what 9/11 was like. They know exactly where they were. They know exactly what their life was like. They know they still vividly remember the newsreels. Now ours isn't as focused and traumatic as 9/11 was to the world, but ours is like...
Ours is a little bit more spread out.
Yeah, ours is spread out. We have this suffering and this fear that's happening, but like we're 2 months into this, 3 months maybe, and we all kind of have this residual like weight in our chests. We all kind of live with this weight that like in a few months, like everybody around us might be sick and people might be dying that we know, right? Or it'll just blow over. Who even knows, right?
Yeah, I'm kind of hoping that it blows over.
I'm
already just so sick of it.
Yeah.
Like, I can't even describe how like just tired of it I am.
So
like, I almost hit the point where it's like I just want to die. Like it's like
yeah. So maybe the cure is worse than the punishment, right? Because I feel
don't know. It's hard.
I feel like I share that sentiment. So like, we all went out and hung out with people last night. We were in a huge group of people. Didn't exactly employ social distancing. We hugged each other. We were very close and the whole shebang.
Yep.
And I think everybody is over it, at least in Utah. We just don't care anymore. Like, why?
Oh, yeah.
Why do that?
I think our younger generation doesn't care as much.
Can I interject here?
Yeah.
So I saw this article. It said that like Utah is actually like one of the worst states in the country in terms of like trying to follow like social distancing.
It's like, interesting.
And yet we still have like one of the lowest cases in the country. It's like it's one of those weird things.
Huh. Well, I don't know what to say about that. I think there's a lot of variables that play into that, like kind of where we are geographically. We don't have a whole lot of urban centers, and we're kind of later in the game. But basically, to sum up my actual opinion, because most of what I've said is like asking questions or whatever. My opinion is that nobody actually knows what's going to happen. Nobody actually knows anything, really. But everybody thinks they know everything. And my problem is that we have people, specifically on Facebook, reposting misinformation and disinformation from like chiropractors telling us that it's a plandemic and that this is all a hoax. I've looked at the data, everybody. I'm a doctor, but he's not a doctor. He's a chiropractor. And so on one end, we have this dude telling me he's getting thousands and thousands of shares all over Facebook. He's influencing public opinion. But then we have Dr. Anthony Fauci on the newsreel saying, take this seriously, and giving us the directives. So on one hand, we just have a lot of misinformation and disinformation, and the data even is deceiving. So when people look to their conch of truth, which is the data, we need to look at the data. We need to make data-driven decisions. Even the data is incomplete.
Yeah, the data can be
There's like
because it's like Brock was saying, how many deaths are coronavirus deaths? Why aren't they attributed to, well, they had bone cancer and then they got coronavirus? It's kind of both. But how are we measuring these statistics? Who is reviewing these statistics, and what are the sources? So I personally think that this pandemic is like an 8 out of 10.
Ah, hi.
Mostly because I feel like it is strong on the confusion and the fear factor. It's super strong on the confusion and fear factor, which is your favorite part of the movie. Yeah. When you're watching a movie, your favorite part is like, oh my gosh.
Society breaks down.
Yeah, what is going to happen? Society's breaking down. Like, although we don't have zombies, it would have been sick if coronavirus did the whole zombie thing. That would have made it a 10.
Oh
But,
yeah,
like-
zombie apocalypse, easy 10.
But it's obviously not a one. It's not a boring seasonal flu, even though everybody likes to think that it's
It kind of
the
feels
same
like
thing.
it though sometimes.
But yeah, I mean,
that's why I gave it a low rating. But.
yeah, that is my understanding. Is that I just don't think anybody knows what they're talking about, because everybody is getting. What I'm trying to say is the idiots come out of the woodwork. You look at people's Facebook and they're voicing their opinion, and you're questioning their IQ, you're questioning their sources. You can't even argue with them coherently. I had an argument with some relatives at dinner recently, and they were in a higher age group, and I was just wondering at how they came to their sweeping conclusions about a global pandemic with very little substantial evidence to back it up.
Yeah, I would just like the record to state that I am taking it seriously.
Of course.
Like, I am trying to keep my distance. I'm not perfect at it. I do try to wear masks when I go out, whatever.
Yeah.
But, like, it doesn't feel serious, but I am still taking it serious because I am trying my best to follow the advice of medical experts.
Well, I concur with that. I do want to set the record straight. I don't think this is particularly exciting. I'm just trying to make light of this entire pandemic, because it's very hard for all of us, and it was very hard for all of us to transition. And there was a few weeks in the heat of it where stuff really was like falling apart. Like when supermarkets were being overrun and schools were shutting down. Like, everybody had a plan, and that plan was scary, man.
There was like a week where it was like, oh, this is getting good. This is getting juicy.
Exactly. It felt like a movie, man. Like, we all felt like we were in a movie, and it was the first...
the earthquake struck, and then it was like, yes!
Yeah, and it was crazy because, like... This is our movie. Like, really, people are sharing on Snapchat that there's no toilet paper. This is how our movie starts. Like, there's no toilet paper at Costco and Walmart. And then, like, you jump into Brad Pitt and he's, like, running through the streets and people are just complete anarchy. He's raiding a store for medication for his daughter. I don't think we're at that point anymore, but that was a scary point that we brushed paths with. So I do think that this obviously is going to define our generation, and we're going to be able to tell our kids about it. And we're also going to probably, like, I think that our consequence of this is that people are going to keep food storage. They're going to keep medical supplies. Maybe, we'll see. But I think a consequence of this Black Swan event happening to our generation is that we're going to keep that in mind for the rest of our lives, and we're always going to think of that. We're always going to consider the fact that maybe at grocery stores the shelves won't be full forever, and that they won't be full all the time, or that something might happen that would teeter society off of its center. What do you think, Brock?
Yeah, I like what you're saying. Like, I like the fact that like we're like, when we're gonna be in the future, we're gonna be worrying more about like our health. And it's kind of funny, like in the past, like we were like, when our dads or parents were like, wash your hands, don't touch your face, and stuff like this.
Yeah,
it's kind of like a prophecy, like a self-fulfilling prophecy that like that like if we don't do this stuff, like then we're gonna probably get sick at one point.
Yeah.
And now it's like they're trying to like super like hammer that down to make it so that our future generations will know what happens when like you don't do these social distancing things, or like wash your hands, or like the hygiene, things like that. And then I think we're gonna be more prepared with like medical equipment, and then like more prepared for food. So like pretty much just like coattailing what you're saying for the most part.
Totally. Well, and like handshakes are done. Perhaps we'll
just
see
be
where
with
those
elbows.
go. Yeah, it's interesting. And Nathan, do you have any closing remarks? I think we should loop this off. We've been going for an hour and 40 minutes on this first episode.
4 minutes.
Oh, okay. I can't read.
My closing remarks, as far as everything we talked about, this is all in the mind. the mind is a powerful thing. That's all. That's how I want to end it.
Maybe next episode we'll come prepared with psychology and philosophy. We'll kind of explore the mind and how things work. But we appreciate you for joining us. If you made it this far, you are officially a huge fan of the Salsa Table Podcast. Welcome to the family, brother or sister. And we hope to hear back from you. But
Or they or them.
They, them, yes. But this was our first installment. Thank you for joining us, and we hope that this works out and that you did make it this far. But other than that, we hope you have a wonderful night, and I don't have a sign-off yet. What should be our sign-off?
Adios.
Adios.
Muchachos.
Adios, muchachos. That's so stupid.
You want to see the saddest thing ever?